she feel really sorry for her because she's in South America right now.
Oh,
You know,
let's have fun.
so that's my dream is to get to South America, so she's living my dream right now. She's going to be participating virtually whenever she can. We have my dear friend Catherine, who
Who left?
just left, an orphan stole from us. She's probably talking to Andrea. So, but I think we have everybody because we've got people who, the alternates and all that. So I guess we have to ask for a motion and a second to approve a virtual attendance of Mrs. McClellan.
Right, so I'll read them. Ms. McClellan is participate virtually from her car. Her participation from a remote location was approved as it does not violate the SNA electronic meeting policy or the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and the Code of Virginia. Also, a quorum is physically assembled at the primary meeting location that is open to the public. Arrangements have been made for all persons who hear one or more speak. This is the first of the 2 times per calendar year limit to participate remotely due to personal matter. So I would ask for a motion and a second to approve virtual attendance.
So I give you a motion.
I'll second it, but I have a question. She can't vote. Is that correct?
She may vote remotely. I think she could even chair remotely, but it's more convenient for the
I
person.
thought you couldn't vote.
You can. We've done it at our council meetings. We had somebody who was in Italy with a budget vote.
Oh, that must have been yours.
And it wasn't me, but we had a, and it was like.
Oh, see, we don't allow voting
Yeah.
remotely.
Well, we don't do it very often.
We're very strict.
Yes.
Hey, Bob, I'm on.
Oh,
All right, there she is. Okay, now we can't talk about her anymore. Okay, so I'd like to call for the voice vote, please.
aye.
Aye.
Do we all vote
Aye.
together?
Do you need the?
I can, I'll
I apologize. To vote to have her call in, only the 4 others can vote. Just to be clear.
Aye.
Do we know who we are?
Would you-
The 4 others?
I believe it would be Ms. Wilson, you, Dr. Kay, and Ms. Terry.
Right, aye.
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 Of course, ma'am. Okay, now you're legal, Andrea. Okay.
Madam Chairman, may I have just a real quick comment, please? If I could ask everyone, because we have remote participation today, and of course it's our public meeting, we're recording, the speakers and the microphones are actually in the ceiling. So if I could ask everybody to please project as much as possible, because without that, our remote participants won't be able to hear us very well. And of course, Matt's trying to capture as much of our meeting as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, agenda item number 2 is approval and modification of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Make a second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mr. DeVere, we need a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Ritter,
Yes.
Ms. McClellan,
Yes.
Ms. Terry,
Yes.
Dr. Kay, and Mr. Morrison.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye. Okay, number 3, public comments. Do we have any speakers?
Madam Chair, we did not receive any public comments in advance of today's authority board meeting. I'd recommend we do a call for any public comments from the audience today. Seeing none, nobody to address the board, Madam
We
Chair.
will move on to agenda item number 5. We need to have approval for the meeting minutes of September 8th, 2023. May I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second. We make a good team.
Yeah, I know, it's like ping-pong. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Rivera, we get a voice vote.
Ms. Ritter,
Yes.
Ms. McClellan,
Yes.
Ms. Terry,
Yes.
Mr. Kirkwood,
Yes.
and Ms. Wilson.
Aye. Don't forget me. All right, agenda item number 6, project management update. Mr. DeVere.
Great. We'll let that go. It'll be very quickly because I'm very satisfied with the progress that we're making, and I want to leave a lot of time for our BEAD presentation by GTS. We have currently have 62 miles of fiber now that's either completed construction or under construction. 40 miles completed, 22 underway. And you'll note zones 2 and 3 for Suffolk are now green. That's additional 6.8 million. I took some of that license already that began construction on Monday, but I tend to update this report every other day, so we're going to claim success on zones 2 and 3. Also, quickly, I just wanted to kudos to the CTC and Virginia Beach permitting team. Of 29 permits, we've now approved 20 permits in Virginia Beach, and actually we've approved 14 since our last meeting. We have a process in place now that they're moving those out very quickly to the degree that I've set a tentative date of 1 November that Danilo will begin construction in Virginia Beach, and we will most likely begin with zones 1 through 6 near the transatlantic cables, because those permits were approved earlier. But we also we have permits A through G have been approved, so we also hope to start in that area too. So we're really beginning to pick up the process. Again, we're holding off to the last minute to push fiber through the conduit, because you have cuts, it happens, and we want to minimize that liability. But industry standard is about 3,500 feet per day per crew. Danilo's production goal is about 10,000 feet. So we literally could go through with one crew, could push all the fiber through in a couple of months. So they have multiple crews, so I feel very comfortable about that. That's really what I have. I'll take a pause for questions before we proceed.
Anyone have any questions, Mr. Rivera? Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 8.
Yes, so,
We're going again, automatic equity access.
right, so we've been on a journey with regards to BEAD from both the city-centric perspective and a regional perspective. At the last meeting, we knew that we were making significant headway within the cities, working with the city technical staffs and contractors, and GTS actually volunteered to help with that effort. It would be a win-win if we're able to win BEAD money for regional projects, because it would reduce the overhead cost of GTS as they build out less fiber and provide internet service to unserved, and economically disadvantaged areas. So what I wanted to do today is turn this section over to Mr. Ben Davenport, who's the Vice President for GTS. He's going to introduce his team, and they're going to present to us the good work that's been accomplished by your teams over the past 2.5 months.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, thank you everyone for your time today, and thank you all for your hard work on this project. Everyone knows how important this is for our region and for our community, and so we're very excited to be your partner working on with this. I'd like to really quickly introduce you all to the Global Technical Systems team. First, the founder and CEO of Global Technical Systems, Mr. Terry Spitzer. We have the marketing director for Global Technical Systems, Ms. Jennifer Stanfield. We have and this is a great thing for the region here, the immediate former executive director of the Eastern Shore Broadband Authority, who is now coming to work on the Regional Connectivity Ring project, Mr. Nicholas Pasquaretti. We have the program manager and executive vice president of Spark Network Communications, a GTS company that will be the interface with the network authority. We have Mr. Pat Cody, who is the founder of the Eastern Shore Broadband Authority and an expert in BEAD funding and other types of grant applications. We have Mr. Craig Black, the Chief Operations Officer for Global Technical Systems. We have Mr. Dimitri Wallace, the Security Operations Manager for Spark Network Communications.
That's a familiar name.
Yes, we have Mr. Michael Danachek, who is the Chief Technical Officer of Global Technical Systems. and it will be one of the partners at Spark Network Communications, Mr. Tom Kalkas, Chief Financial Officer for Global Technical Systems. And then we also have Jeff Biku from Broadband Telecom, who's been very instrumental in this project throughout. And I'd also like to recognize Mr. Ryan King, who's here representing the Norfolk Innovation Corridor. Thank you for being here. If I could, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Noel Mitchell to walk you through hopefully a very interactive briefing.
Did you bring everybody?
We've got a whole team that's working behind the scenes also that we'll bring in next time. And Noel, if I could real quick, we also have Mr. Trey Braithwaite from Core Assurance. He is our insurance partner for the Regional Connectivity Link project. Noel, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ben, for introducing me there. So I am the Executive Vice President of Spark Network Communications. Here with Pat Cody, we've really been working together on this to put this together. And really, I like to say, this is a very great thing for the region. We've been working on this, and just personally being from Hampton Roads, living in many of the Hampton Roads regions myself, going to school at Old Dominion University with their excellent computer science and cybersecurity program. It's really good to see this kind of investment in our infrastructure here. So with that, I'd really like to give you an update on the BEAD program and how we've kind of been, approaching this in our way forward here. So we introduce ourselves here. Really, GTS being that the provider for you guys to bring together this joint application is really, it's really a great thing. It really showcases that we're here together as a region and can apply and have a strong application together. The member cities have been excellent in providing us with data, which we're going to need in the challenge process. So with that data, we've been working with the CIO's office. Everyone has been very great at providing what we're going to need here to really fill out this application and really maximize the most we can get from the BEAD program for our region. And SNA really being that voice of bringing everyone together, having one voice to unify and bring everything together. It's really been great, and we're happy to do this work to deploy this projects for you. So timeline, where have we been and where are we going? You can see that in June, the White House and NTIA came out with that $42.5 billion that they were going to allocate for the states. Virginia's allocation of that being a little under $1.5 billion. That's really great. That shows us that we're going to have this money to potentially go after to really stand up this infrastructure. And just yesterday, DHED had an update on the challenge process. And kind of some extra steps that we're going to have to go through, kind of clarifying some things with the process that we'll go over here shortly. And then late October, November is when the challenge process is going to start to begin. We're going to have about 30 days to do that. There's a little soft time right there, but around 30 days. And it's going to go on for about 3 months. They're going to be reviewing these challenges and going through matching up different maps and seeing what is actually correct and not, verifying these locations that we're going to be able to challenge. By that time, early spring 2024, really we're going to have a rolling updates of the map. So you'll be able to go out and see the areas where the challenges have been accepted or not. And that'll really give us a good idea for then March, April timeline to submit that BEAD joint application on behalf of SNA and the region. And of course, if you have any questions at any time, please ask away. So what is the criteria for the scoring? So in this application process, really it breaks down to a few different sections, how we're going to be putting this together and how GTS is going to strategize to meet these different things. So 75% of the criteria here being the BEAD program layout, affordability, and fair labor practices. This is going to be really good because we're going to really showcase how we're going to go after the underserved and unserved community and the anchored tenants, the community anchored tenants being libraries, schools, higher education, these type of things. And actually they've kind of expanded their scope a little bit to nonprofits and a few others. So really going after those and making sure those are highlighted in this application. Funding and affordability for the digital equity, and prioritizing fair labor and regional workforce. Us being here and doing work locally is really good for this application process. 5% going to speed of deployment. So really here, it's really going to showcase how GTS being a local and going after so many government contracts, or really having the expertise to do this. We're really going to showcase here how we're really going to roll this out quickly. And finally, with the 10 and 10% each, consulting with local governments and providers receiving a letter of support from local government. And this will just be continuing to keep that strong partnership going with SNA, our local government, making sure everyone comes together and there's support for this program, that we can really go after this and build a very strong case for the speed fund. Here, this is going to be the DHCD published data here, utilizing a lot of the FCC broadband maps. And so what you have here is for each region here, in the red here in this first column is the unserved broadband serviceable locations, and underserved in the next column, and total at the end of serviceable locations. Now what I want to emphasize here is that this is the starting line. This is the baseline of what they say is out there. We know that these numbers are not right. These numbers are low, and that's what the challenge process is going to be for. We're going to challenge that there's actually more out there that can be serviced here, and it's really going to take all of us coming together, verifying the different maps and locations to really get those numbers correct, to really maximize the amount of funds our area is really going to be able to receive. Here are just maps and regions that we've put together to show kind of in that same color coding scheme where in these different regions it kind of lays out. And just from these maps themselves, personally having lived in a lot of Hampton Roads areas, I know pockets that are not represented on this map that we're going to go out and go after and look for, really doing serviceable GIS data locating on some of these areas. And it's really going to take us doing it, coming together with the city and them looking at their data to really correlate what is and what is not correct on these maps. But this is from what just the DHCD has from that FCC data.
So can you flip back?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I agree there's coverage, but there's not take up due to cost. Is that going to be a factor that we can figure in to this?
The cost of?
For homes, all the little green dots to actually sign up is cost prohibitive. Looks like there's a lot of people who have the potential for access, but affordability is a critical factor in Norfolk.
Sure.
And lack thereof.
Sure. So one of the aspects is definitely making it affordable to everyone. And and a little bit later we'll show some of the testing that's going to be done. But really, when we come together with the application process, we want to show that it's going to be affordable for unserved and underserved. That's really
one of the issues on affordability is that in the application process, you'll put in your fee schedules and showing that you've got service that's affordable and adequate to meet the need, meaning like education where you need good two-way service. And in that regard, you set your minimum download, upload, and your minimum price, which may be behind the gigabit capability you're building. Maybe it's 50 down, 25 up that you're offering as your base price. Right now, there's federal program that people in need can apply for that gives them a $30 a month reduction. So a lot of companies,
for a very short period of time.
a lot of companies are setting their minimum price at $30, others at $50, which means only $20 a month out. But being able to provide a service at a low cost to handle that is part of this application process. At this time, the state believes they're going to have some funds for a second round, and that they're going to concentrate on affordability and diversity. And so there may be even additional criteria that come out if they get to that second round. So that's the best I can answer for you right now on that issue. In urban areas, affordability is a major criteria in a large chunk of the country. Affordability is secondary until you can get service at all. And so both things apply. And they apply in these cities because in some of the rural areas you don't have service. In some pockets, even in Norfolk, you don't have service, period. So affordability becomes the second part of the equation after you solve it first.
Misleading the way it's being presented, I guess, is where I'm concerned. Okay.
In a graphic like this, yes, but from the federal down, we're all aware of it. We're all aware of the issue.
I got it. Yep. One more, because you make a good point. If you go back up a slide, I think it's 5, you mentioned about upload and download, but on the, one more. You said maximize. I wonder if we should have put some kind of criteria or threshold in there, because maximize could mean different things to other people, right? So should it be a number for upload and download speed that we're aspire to be so that we could make it meet? Or just maybe ambiguous, just to figure out what you're trying to.
Well, it was ambiguous for this graphic, but with fiber to the premise, basically we can tell you you're talking about a minimum gig up and gig down. But you can set the network and design the network for any level below that.
Right.
So let's say we start with 100 by 100. The criteria for this funding is 100 by 20. But if you're building new structure, it's supposed to mean at least 100 by 100.
And that's my point too, exactly. Is do
Well,
we
in the
want to make sure-
application, it'll be there.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good.
And as part of the agreement between GTS and SNA, some of those criteria are spelled out, but you also understand that in some areas, let's take a rural part of Chesapeake, for instance, you might start off with some wireless until your fiber can reach there. And the wireless might not give you 100 symmetric, it might be 50 by 30. So, you know, it's a case of what are you capable of.
Thanks.
Norfolk, open Portsmouth. You see Suffolk there. Now in Suffolk, leave Suffolk up a second. In Suffolk, supposedly the RDOF and VATI has already been deducted. And we still have that scattering
Right, so
point. So
during-
that's an interesting set of data to be looking at.
Well, during yesterday's call, the session they had, I brought that issue up because when I pulled up their map and pulled up our map for our effort, it looked like RDOF was pulled out, but VATI wasn't. So I had a question of them because it looked like there were some addresses. So a lot of those reds on the western side, I believe those are in even southern and over to the right to this little swamp area, maybe VATI. So there's a question I have to them that it's possible that those weren't pulled out and they're marked as unserved. But, well,
Right, if we can get you funding for them, we will.
Yeah, that's good. You might have two choices.
We're not allowed to double dip, but we can make mistakes. All right, same situation with Virginia Beach, upper part's all green. That doesn't mean everybody's served or everybody can afford it. But it's possible they could get service. And then in the rural areas, you've still got areas that not only don't have uptake, but probably don't have service. However, there's only 694 shown, oh, this is the CIA, I'm sorry. The Virginia Beach totals happen to be 637. And that's out of a population of, what, 455,000. So that's a tenth of 1% supposedly are not served or are underserved. And somehow I suspect that number is a lot higher. And these maps are living things, and one of the things we'll be working on for this round of funding right now, we're challenging speed definitions and getting the maximum funds we can to the region. But while we're doing that, we also will improve the overall addresses on the maps so that any subsequent broadband efforts more accurately reflect who really does and doesn't have service. That's a problem for all of us.
Excellent. So here we're showing also the community anchor institutions. Now these locations are eligible for funding if they're lacking service, and that's defined as the 1 gigabits per second symmetrical up and down. That would be so even DHCD commented that these numbers are a lot bigger than they thought, and we think there's even more out there that are not contained within these numbers here. And if I can just show you here an outline of the community anchor institutions with the RCR overlaid, this is going to be how we supply. I mean, it's a great way to show that this is how we're going to supply those institutions, or primary health care facilities or libraries with with the connectivity they're going to need, really the infrastructure that we're going to need going forward.
If you combine that with the networks that you cities already have, like the cluster there on the south side in Chesapeake, where Chesapeake Connects is going to wrap right around that same cluster, you'll see that by the end of the BEAD funding, we should be able to reach all or very nearly all of that in community anchor institutions. And Virginia's definition is very liberal on what's a community anchor institution, and we will circulate that to the cities so that you have it, because separately from all the heavy documentation that's contained in it. Because it includes nonprofits, it includes health and welfare organizations, private schools, daycares. I mean, it's a large list that they call community anchor institutions. And as you saw in the previous slide, it actually was a higher number for Virginia Beach than who they claimed was unserved.
So the challenge strategy going forward. So really, like I've been saying before, is really to maximize the funding for this region. I don't know if I can emphasize that enough. Really getting together and getting the most we can from this BEAD funding, and by showing those data points for unserved, underserved community anchors. DHCD has released a speed test tool to do this, so kind of not to duplicate efforts. There is a tool where DHCD will pull in all the speed test results. They have a back end where they will compile that, and that is something that we will be hopefully pushing out here soon so that everyone can have access to that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. And GTS will continue to partner with cities to collect that data and do data refinement. We'll go over that as well for the preliminary data sets, and we will ask that after this meeting to get some initial feedback from that data. We'll be pushing all that GIS data out to the cities after this. So this is the website here that will be launched to do all the data collection. Something really important to note here is that per the NTIA guidelines, for the challenge to be correct, an individual, for the citizen, will need to do this test 3 times on 3 different occasions. So that's important. There's also through this link a scheduling so that you can set up multiple recurring schedule for you to do that testing, so that the citizen will know, hey, I need to do this test again to submit my data, and it will remind them. And of course, this data is automatically recorded and backed up to DHCD, excuse me.
And separate from you getting this slide deck, I have copies of that page with the URL on.
So this is kind of what that map looks like, and as the challenges come in, you will see this map updated real time. You will see that it points out, if you select the correct filter, that which locations have the challenge and which don't, which is also going to be updated and reviewed through that 3-month process on the timeline we talked about earlier. And you can't get to this currently.
Can you go back to that again?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm just gonna make it bigger or zoom in.
interesting when you think about the dots that say underserved, and could think about the green dots on the previous maps. They seem to be in the same spots.
Talk to your provider about that.
I think it goes back to my argument about affordability.
So what can we do? So our next steps here, we'll be handing off the broadband serviceable location and the community anchor institution layers out to each county. We'd hope to get some feedback by early November. That would really help us in getting together this data and what needs to be challenged. We'll conduct the methods of data refinement, which we'll go over, and to identify challenges from the regional side to push to DHCD. Now, DHCD will engage each city individually to certify the final list of challenges after we get those lists together, and then combining the survey results and our own data, we'll put that together. So some of those data refinements, so the speed test we talked about, hoping to spread awareness about that, put that out so that as many citizens can use it as possible. Getting as much school data, school board data, which DTS will engage the school CIOs to get some of that information. And some things that may be pertinent that they're not know is any kind of data, things like during the pandemic, if they did hotspots or anything like that, what locations were they? How many people used them? That information will be really helpful in gathering the big data set. And are there any other data sets? Is there any legacy systems that we don't know about or things out there that can have large amounts of data about maybe who does and does not have service? Those things can all be incorporated into the data pool set, and then we can review them to see whether they do or do not match up.
And any surveys any of you in the cities has done about what your citizens have and don't have, what your needs were, either in terms of when you were joining the SNA or what you've done internally or how you've worked up your budgets. Any of that data you've collected that's current enough to be pertinent is good to compare and contrast.
Putting this together, there's a million touch points represented by those 3 blocks. And so what I've observed over the last 6 weeks watching this is we have some synergy where we have one contractor working in several cities, but how do we pull this all together? Because how I'm seeing this, I see the spread awareness on the fact of SNA, but it really filters down to the city. So I just want to make sure that when we leave here, we have clear handoffs and responsibilities. So like engaging the CIOs, is that done through the city leadership to the schools? Or, I just want the board members to feel comfortable with the way we're proceeding. I just see 1,000 handoffs if I were to do a diagram there of action items and just make sure that everyone's comfortable today.
Yes, well, the flow that we expect is the GDS would talk with the city and the school CIOs for which data sets they have, and then within the city, the CIO can either gather themselves or direct us, introduce us where to gather. For instance, your best point data is probably in your 911 systems, backed up by tax and commissioner of revenue, assessment and tax. Those are the people who know where every location is. Schools and your housing authorities probably have the best data on what's going on within their environments. And what do they have and what don't they have? It's valid either way. If they don't have it, we know that that's something to look at. If they do have it, it gets merged in with this data. The duplicates get deleted, and we submit it. But every address that we can show is unserved or underserved or is a community anchor institution is a possibility of additional funds coming into the city for the construction and operation of broadband. And so it behooves all of us to maximize this to the extent that we can. Because you're all cities, you're all urban, right now, compared to any rural county in Virginia, your unserved and underserved looks like a very, very tiny percentage of your population. The eastern shore of Virginia is over 80% built out with fiber to the home. And yet they still have several thousand more unserved than you have combined, just in a 44,000 person county. So this is why gathering this data up accurately is so important, because every miss you've got is money that we jointly are seeking to bring here. And one of the strongest things I think about this effort is I think having all 5 cities apply together, given your populations, really brings the attention of DHCD to the region, that you can't be ignored because you're only a few points, because it's all 5 of you. And in population and in political representation, you carry a lot of clout. And when it comes to winning awards on grants and being heard, that has weight. And we want to see you win the maximum amount of grant you can. Because we very easily could have gotten no grants without a good application process. So I commend you all for coming together to do this, because I think together you've got a chance of much more significant funding.
So, Steve, I think I hear you press forward about and looking out for the CIOs, and I appreciate that. Like for the city of Virginia Beach, what we have was smart poles, working with Project Telecom to make sure that we have addressed the unserved and underserved. So that kind of stuff for us, we really have it already. But don't also forget the census tract that was completed 5 years ago. As we also deploy mobility houses out there, they do have a sense of where those spots were. So, think broad.
So it just seems to me that my heart's for you guys, so I'm talking too much on this stuff. The speed test alone, I mean, that's how do you?
You're almost gonna have to crowdsource it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just gonna have to do a giant, I'm thinking of all the people who come to council and complain every day about everything. Here's an opportunity for them to help us and figure out how to gauge them. Huh? They're everywhere.
Yeah, to that very point, after looking at the maps are reflective of what's being offered. It's not until these speed tests are done that you can challenge and disprove this illusion that there's more coverage at adequate speeds than there really are. So this process at this point is where the rubber meets the road.
That's particularly true with underserved.
Yeah.
So you guys were looking for some feedback on something by 11:30, which is just around the neighborhood, so I'm just making sure we're.
So is it up to each individual city to contact the address? I mean, I think for the speed test, isn't that a critical point on how do we actually contact those people for them to do the test for the challenge?
Starting with GTX, as wide a publicity program as you can get out. As Catherine said, crowdsourcing.
Can you define?
Newspaper articles,
Public service announcement.
PSAs, press release.
TikTok, Twitter, I mean,
Facebook.
you hit everything and everywhere and say, here's the download, how to do it. I think, it's great they gave you a QR code, but like, can I do it on my phone? Do I have to have a computer? Can I do it at my neighbor's house? Do I have to have Wi-Fi? I mean, I think all those better directions, and then we just blanket the world. And
I know y'all are gonna look at me very strangely, but I'm coming to the conclusion that it might be better to do something in the mail. People are overwhelmed by emails and, so that would be a suggestion that.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
They do, but it can't be a little white postcard, because, nobody ever gets their voter registration card. For God's sake.
It's just a
It
cost
comes in an envelope.
issue to mail out at first-class rates to every home.
I don't think it even needs a first-class rate.
Mm.
I mean, you can do a bulk rate, but it has to be something glitzy. I don't want to conflate that with mailings that individuals in this room may do. But, you know, you have 10 seconds to grab somebody's attention. So it's got to be something that they're actually going to look at.
I think the opportunity for cities is HRSD bill, our tax bills that go out, personal property, I mean, some of them will be late, but we can hit some of those things. I don't know about most people, but I stand at my trash can and go, trash, 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 bill, keyword.
Except in the rural areas, these people don't get HRSD bills. So what is the one in common, and that would have to be a decision smart people would make. What's the one in common thing that they get and they're gonna open? You know, in these unserved areas, you just don't have water and sewer service, speaking from experience. So.
Or internet.
Huh?
Or internet.
But most, well, for the cities that
Yeah.
charge a trash fee, they do get a trash bill.
Well, we don't charge a trash, we're the only ones who don't, so, you know, it's got, stormwater might be the one thing that everybody, but then again, in your underserved area, this is why I have no light. In the underserved areas, if people are in rentals, they likely don't get a stormwater bill, it's the owner of the building who may get it, so it's gonna take, I think, a little bit of thought to get the broadest possible notification of, because this is a critical point
Very true.
for getting, you know, so.
Roseberry, Andrea would like
Andrew
to.
would like to be recognized.
Hey, guys. I think this is all good discussion, and I like a lot of these ideas. I also would add, you know, using Nextdoor. But I think each of us can go to our Tom's team, and they can help us with this. I think we just need to have the parameters of when we, you know, to the point that was made earlier. I think Catherine made it in terms of a how-to, easy type of thing, whether it's put in the mail from a Ritter's comment, or it's put online, or wherever, billboards, et cetera. We just have to, you know, maybe put some parameters together, and then each of our individual cities, teams can maybe work together on putting something out. So I don't know that we're gonna find all of it today, though.
Okay, well, I think it's a lot more critically important than that, because the people we're trying to reach with this grant funding are the people who may not have that computer or the access, you know, or people like me. If you ask me to do that on my phone, I'm like, no, I have to wait till I get home. So,
With any kind of advertising, which some of us have to do when we run for office, you have to have multiple layers.
Right.
so who's responsible, I guess is my question.
GPS. So
I'm gonna be bothering the daylights out of
Yes, ma'am. So GPS has leaned forward quite a bit on this, I mean, from an overhead perspective and everything else. And the reason I asked the question initially about connecting the dots is, since we're gonna go out with one product, is there a playbook that we can give the cities to help them? I'm looking at that spread awareness thing and locked in on that. Is there a playbook, particularly for unserved and underserved, things that they recommend, things that have worked, so that we've got 5 cities in unison rather than?
Well, they've all been mentioned, and what I would say is that if the city is willing and can afford to do a direct mailing, that's the best way to reach those who are unserved completely. For the underserved, which is the majority of what we're looking at in this area in terms of quality of service, then all the social outreach type stuff works also. So personally, I think it's up to each city to supplement the advertising and notices and such that GTS and partners will be doing with whatever the city can do to bring in as much information out of your city to add to this collection as you can.
So it may not be as much of an expense as you think, because, you know, like town center or downtown Norfolk, you know they have it, so you know where all these places are that have good service. And so I think we can pretty much identify where the underserved or the underserved is. So I don't think it's gonna be as big of an expense to reach those people as you think. But did you want to say something?
Gentleman back
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. If I could, we have been working on an ambitious campaign, and Rosemary, you having been run a campaign before, I think you understand a lot of the different mediums that there are to get out to the public. We will come back to you here very shortly next week with a few bullet points of things that GTS will be heading up. Participation from the cities would be greatly appreciated. I heard Ms. McClellan speak about potentially working with the comms departments from each city to develop a very robust plan where we are maximizing our outreach to everyone. And so we look forward to doing that, and we assure you this will be, Ms. Ritter, this will be a very ambitious campaign.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So, I'm wondering if it would be considered if we try to make a case in those heavily densely populated areas where we were successful in having speed tests done, but not every single house. But if you know these 20 addresses came back without the adequate speeds, can you make a case for the fact that these other people are next door and behind that house?
That's exactly the conversations that we had. So once we begin to see specific areas on this survey that are not reaching the adequate speeds, we will begin a more ambitious point of address campaign to go after that area and make sure that there aren't any others in that nearby geographic community that are affected the same way. And so, yes, absolutely, Mr. Hayes, we take that under notice for sure.
I want to go back to what Stephen was talking about, kind of a playbook, a standard message that we're going to put, whether it's on our websites, on the postcards, that says, this is what we're doing, this is why we need you, this is the deadline, go here. I think that'd be useful because I think the messaging should be similar. We're going after grant money, after, whatever we want to say, but, I think it's important that we all have those steps that we want to, what we should be pushing out to the communities. Be helpful, including our anchor institutions too, they're included too, so that should be, part of this also.
Absolutely.
Following up on that comment, so beyond the speed test, what other data, so you kind of mentioned going to the Commissioner of Revenue or the Treasurer, are you looking for identifying anchor institutions that might be missed or nonprofits that might be missed? I mean, beyond just the speed test data, what other kinds of data are you thinking we can help you get?
Well, we will get that list of community anchor institutions to you. Sometimes with either the assessment databases or the GIS databases, you can put in filters to pull out that kind of information. If they've been classed that way, if they haven't been classed that way, you can't pull it that way. And so, some things are relatively easy. Like it was relatively easy for one of my counties to pull out all the multiple dwelling units for us and tell us how many units were there, so we could see whether or not the mapping was correct on those. The other county couldn't do it. So those kinds of things come into play. But yes, we can definitely get you a broadsheet so everyone's using a common language on what BEAD is, what kind of grant funding are we going for, what's it going to be used for, why should you do this survey. And we can do the same thing for on the terms of the data sets and the other data that the cities have, and that's all part of the discussion with the CIOs is, what sources do you think your city's got? Who's got that information? How can it be released? And when we're talking about service data, we need an address, but we don't need identifiable information about the person or the family that resides there. So in terms of what work that GTS would be doing, putting this data together, we want scrub data. We don't want personal data. And that's particularly important, like the student data.
And Pat, if I could, I do want to be clear, we have been doing a lot of this work already, so we have a substantial amount of data gathering, prior to this meeting. So any other data that we can pull in just bolsters our case for the region.
Anybody else? Do you have one?
So really, next steps here, really just, as we've been talking about, spread the awareness, especially about that survey. And I think we've talked about how we may possibly do that. We'll get together that sheet, get that common language together and get that to all the cities. GTS will continue to conduct outreach to the CIOs for that additional data, anything else we might have missed, just to bolster the application process. That will really substantially help us get the most for the region as possible. Cities, any feedback? We talked about that early November timeline for the broadband serviceable locations and the community anchor institutions data, verifying those, adding anything else. Really here, local knowledge is really paramount here because you all will know if there are new housing units that are not represented on the maps or anything like that, where the local knowledge really will help you pull together that data. And application readiness, so we will continue to follow up and find all the DHCD developments, continue to track that, and find anything else that make a more compelling case for us as a region to apply. So really, if there's anything or more information, I am a point of contact here. I'll be trying to gather all of this information, or if you need to point someone a direction to make connections to gather information, please reach out to me. If there's any questions, reach out to me. We have been doing extensive work with this, so really let me know if you have any questions or anything like that, and we'll be happy to answer them and get back to you.
And Noel, if I could, you will be reaching out personally to each of the CIO's offices.
That's right,
as well
that's right,
next
to really connect and find out if there's any more of that information. Really, if I haven't spoken with you already, I'm sure I've spoken with a lot of you, but yes, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, may I ask a quick question? We have a couple of city managers at the table. As we look at this fantastic opportunity, this could be a sizable grant. And of course, the way grants typically work, as we all know, is that money gets expended, and then there's cash flow challenges many times as you submit reimbursements that take 3-4 months to return. And that's probably not a detailed conversation for today, but if it is a regional application, do you see an opportunity to sit down with the governments and determine how that would be set up? So just case in point, we're managing a body grant, we're fronting a lot of money waiting for reimbursement from DHCD, and it's not the fastest process to wait for that money to return back. So maybe just to put out there for a marker and I look to the city managers, but as we go through this thought of application development, that might be something that we want to have as a conversation point in terms of how that all works.
And we'll get clarity to that for you too, because it's my understanding that in this particular grant sequence, the cash is going to flow to the private partner.
So that could be something that you would
So the cash flow issue would become GTS's.
I understand.
They might go to the cities and beg for support. But, so I'll get clarification on that for you. But
It's
Virginia
just-
is definitely requiring private partners with this, which is why this conglomeration using SNA as your vehicle is a smart, convenient way to go as far as I'm concerned.
I just want to identify that maybe as something to think through.
So you're talking about the allocation of funds per city?
Well, I guess that would be a negotiation point, right? Who fronts the money, whether it's a private fronting or city participation is winner. I just think that's something we'll need to be clear on, eyes wide open, right?
Well, no, I think you're right. I think that's a very important point. So I don't know how y'all are gonna Pat, have you thought that through?
I have, if you sign the agreement today, that falls on GTS SNA, because part of the responsibility of GTS under the agreement is to go everywhere and serve everybody. So if we have grant money to do that, we'll do it. If we don't have grant money to do that, it'll take longer.
But will there be any discussion about what goes to each city? You know, I mean, it's gonna be a percentage.
That's defined.
Your allocation will be defined.
Yeah, the state defines your allocation, and GTS is not going to get involved in that. We may.
I mean, the
be the
allocation
party
is
that-
actually to each point, so many dollars per point. So if you have 300 points, that's 300 times that goes to Chesapeake.
Okay.
So if we can, we've got a pretty heavy closed session that we need to get into, so if there's no other questions, is there anything else?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I need to know the answers.
No, that's fine. Let's see if there's anything else.
And we're available later. I mean, email us the question.
I'm not.
Email us the question.
I haven't gone since 8:30. So.
So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
This is fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Agenda item number 8, closed session. Ms. Lockerbie, would you provide the language?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that you are looking for a motion to go into closed session pursuant to subsections A28 and A29 of section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, 1950 as amended, for the purpose of discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the negotiating position of the authority, as well as information subject to the exclusion in subdivision 11 of section 2.2-3705.6 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, by the authority as a responsible public entity relating to the terms of a comprehensive agreement with the Global Technical Systems, and also a closed session pursuant to subsection A1 of section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, for the purpose of discussion and consideration of the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, and salary of the authority's executive director. And I'm sorry, ma'am, to interrupt. And the legal counsel for each of the cities and the CIOs that are not on the board as members or alternate members, I believe are requested or permitted to attend the closed session.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Voice vote, please.
Ms. Ritter?
I was the second. Oh, yes.
Ms. McClellan?
Aye.
Ms. Terry?
Aye.
Mr. Moore? All right. Ms. Wilson?
Aye. And we're now closed.
Okay, we're live.
So I'd like to call us back to order. So let me call on Mr. Lockerbie, please.
Madam Chair, I believe that you are looking for a motion to reconvene an open meeting and to certify by a roll call vote that one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements of the Freedom of Information Act, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion to convene the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board of Directors during the closed session.
Motion?
Do a roll call. Roll call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. McClellan?
Yes.
We lost her.
Ms. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Moore? Yes. Ms. Wilson?
Yes. Now, were there any things that were discussed that some action needs to be taken?
I believe, Madam Chair, that there were two actions one of which was ratification of an extension of the executive director's contract of employment. And you have a copy of a draft of that extension in front of you. And that extension is through December 31 of 2024 at a salary of $147,000 per year, with holidays as set by the City of Norfolk and as given by the City of Norfolk to its employees, and 10 days paid time off. And in addition, that the executive director would be responsible for facilitating both the construction and timely turnover of the completed fiber ring as set forth in the P3 comprehensive and lease agreements, as well as developing a position description and facilitating the recruitment process of the succeeding executive director as directed by the board of directors, and to ensure a successful transition to the person so selected by the board.
So can I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt the amendment, and also that the chair or the vice chair execute the amendment.
Second.
Take a vote, please.
Ms. Ritter?
Yes.
Ms. McClellan?
Yes.
Ms. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes. And we are so lucky to have you for another year. Everyone, thank you for sharing you with us.
She said until 31 December. Thank you.
She may come back with another amendment after you've been
Well-
for a month.
I've been told that also. Thank you. Thanks for the
We're
comment.
very, very lucky to have you. I was telling Ms. Ritter that you've really gotten us through a lot of tough spots to this point. Debbie was saying, gee, things are really tough. And I said, oh, you should say the tough times. So you really helped get us through that, and we're very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lockaby, is there anything else?
I believe that, Madam Chair, that it would also be in order for a member of the Board of Directors to move to adopt the final version of the comprehensive agreement with Global Technical Systems. I believe it's Management Information Systems, DBA Global Technical Systems. I gave my copy of the contract to Ms. Weitzel. Ms. Weitzel and Ms. Elmore both have final copies of that contract. And I believe it would be to adopt that contract and to authorize its execution and delivery by the chair or vice chair as appropriate.
Somebody want to make a motion as read by Mr. Lockaby?
My turn?
Yes, it's
Motion. I second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ritter?
Yeah.
Ms. McClellan?
Yes.
Ms. Terry?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes, sir, Reed. The motion passes, and we I would just like to say, I'm so thrilled that we have a local company with local people doing this. They do happen to be in Virginia Beach, but they hire from everywhere, and we are delighted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we ready?
Madam Chair, if I may, maybe just two, I promise, very quick announcements. Announcement number one, when the Southside Network Authority members get back to their desk or computers, you are going to find an email waiting for you from Simone and Cindy Malky from our team. It is announcing a major event that will occur at Jefferson Lab on Monday at 10 a.m. You are all invited to join Senator Warner, Congressman Scott, Governor Youngkin, and other dignitaries. For now, what we can say is it's going to be a very good day for the Hampton Roads region at Jefferson Lab on Monday. And I know a lot of people in here were a big part of making this happen. So what you will need to do if you can attend, they are asking for you to register RSVP. There's a link in the email. You need to do that by noon tomorrow. Okay, so just wanted to bring that to the SNA's attention. Secondly, if we could beg for your patience for 5 minutes, we would love to bring in a table and set up a photo opportunity to celebrate this great milestone today. So,
That's
Madam
really wonderful.
Chair, if we could have just
Yeah.
5 to 7 minutes, we'll get that
We can
set
do
up.
that when we adjourn.
Absolutely.
And is there any other older new business to come before this body?
Next meeting date is a holiday.
What is the holiday?
Sorry.
That's